Some bold statements about the Phoenix Suns coming from a Hall of Fame NBA player, Kevin Garnett, saying he is not only high on the Suns, but two of the Suns star players can be considered MVP candidates. He's talking about Bradley Beal and Devin Booker. We're going to get into KG's comments and how Devin Booker and Bradley Beal could find themselves in the MVP conversation this season. Right here on Suns Digest. My name is CJ Pierre. Thanks for joining us, you guys. We've got a big show coming up for you. Before we get into what KG had to say, we noticed that about 82% of you guys are watching our videos, and we appreciate that, but you haven't subscribed to our channel just yet. If you want to make sure you're keeping up to date with all the latest Suns news and updates, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well, so you don't miss a thing as we are going to have cooking up for you guys. Now, let's get into what KG is saying about the Phoenix Suns. Kevin Garnett, the longtime NBA player, one of the top 75 greatest players of all time, winning a championship with the Boston Celtics, longtime player with the Minnesota Timberwolves. He also spent some time with the Brooklyn Nets, and he right now has a platform with this podcast with Paul Pierce, and he is very high on the Phoenix Suns. Kevin Garnett is a believer in what the Suns are doing, and he thinks that they can be a contender. Now, there's a lot of competition in the Western Conference in particular, a lot of other strong teams. We're going to get to that in a moment as well. But KG, he's a believer in the Suns. He spoke about it during his podcast with Paul Pierce, and he says he wants people to stop sleeping on the Phoenix Suns, and he just basically is all in on what the Suns are doing, and he thinks that they can be a championship level team. Here's a little bit more about what he had to say on his podcast. He said Devin Booker can be an MVP. You know what I'm saying? Bradley Beal, he can be an MVP. These guys, they got it, bro. And you got KD. And then when talking about Devin Booker and Kevin Durant and their experience in the Olympics, he says that means something. That means they're in a rhythm. I'm telling you, bro, Phoenix is going to be better than what most people think. Now, the Phoenix Suns won almost 50 games last season, and I think that means a lot to a guy like Kevin Garnett. They ended up being the sixth seeded team in the Western Conference, and right now projections kind of have them hovering around that fifth and sixth spot again. Again, it's a loaded Western Conference, and Paul Pierce recognized that. He responded to KG in terms of what he had to say. He said, I think these young teams are a problem. Right now, I'm all about Minnesota, Dallas, and Denver. That's what Paul Pierce had to say. Also left out the Oklahoma City Thunder, who were the number one seed in the Western Conference. Last season had the most wins in the conference, second most wins overall. But I think, what Paul Pierce is just kind of pointing out is that the Western Conference is loaded. It's deep. It's full of very competitive teams. And he not only necessarily does, not saying that Phoenix can compete with them, but these are teams that have already shown that they can compete at a high level. The Thunder, Mavs, Nuggets, Timberwolves, all teams that made it to the Western Conference semifinals. The Minnesota Timberwolves, in fact, sweeping the Phoenix Suns last season. But what KG is saying is that given what Phoenix still currently has together, when you have guys like Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker, all of which can be MVP candidates, you have to be considered a contending team. Now, later in the podcast, Paul Pierce had talked about their bench and talked about, how the depth of what the Suns have. And I can just tell you guys that I am a big believer in what the Suns have in terms of depth. We talked about the big three, Durant, Beal, and Booker, and that's great. They've added Tyus Jones as a true point guard, something I've been screaming for since we started this podcast. Yusuf Nurkic is still a solid contributing starting center in this league. We showed you video of him, working on his shot, trying to become a little bit more perimeter oriented. That can help the squad. Adding new head coach Mike Budenholzer could completely change what this offense looks like. And then when you add in the depth behind with the addition of Monte Morris, the addition of Mason Plumlee, bringing back Royce O'Neal, and obviously Grayson Allen still going to be in the fold as well. Then you added the rookies, Ryan Dunn, Oso Ighodaro, that will probably fit into the rotation at some well. That is a deep team. I just laid every single guy out there that we should expect to see minutes. Didn't even mention Bol, who is also a possibility to see minutes. I think the Suns are going to be in great position and have a great opportunity to continue to do damage, just like KG said. But the thing that he said that really kind of stuck out to me as well in terms of what he said was that Devin Booker can be an MVP. and that Bradley Beal can be an MVP. That is a very, very bold statement to take when it comes to the Suns. What some people would look at as their, second and third best players on their team, but Devin Booker has been the best player on the Suns before. Bradley Beal has been the best player on a team, not necessarily a winning team, but he's has experience being the best player, and he, they're both former All Stars. They can compete at a high level. So, but can they be MVPs? That is, can Booker or Beal win the MVP this particular season? That's something that, we're going to have to take a look at. I think that it's probable for one of the guys, not so much for the other guy. And I think you guys know who I think actually has an opportunity to win MVP. And I think that is Devin Booker. I think he is the guy who was tailor made this season to really make an MVP run, especially if the Suns end up fighting for contention with the number one seed in the Western Conference. Devin Booker's coming off of an Olympic run where he showcased so much more of his talent than just his scoring, his ability to play off the ball, his ability to defend. And I think he is kind of in a prime position to, if he really is able to contribute well, to really be in contention for the MVP. Let's just take a look at his numbers from last year, averaging 27.1 points per game, averaging 4.5 rebounds per game, 6.9 assists. He averaged almost a steal a game, shooting 49% from the field and 36% from 3-point range. Devin Booker obviously continuing to compete at a high level, showing why he's one of the best two guards in the NBA. And I don't think that that's something that we're going to see anything less of this upcoming season. In fact, I think Devin Booker has the opportunity to really expand his game and really generate more of a narrative for himself to say, "Hey, I am this team's franchise player. I'm going to propel us forward. I'm going to propel us into championship contention." And I think that he is in a good position to potentially climb up into the MVP ranks, especially if the Suns are, like I said, fighting for one of those top three seeds in the Western Conference. Let's move over to Bradley Beal's prospects. Bradley Beal is probably the least likely of the Suns' big three that would garner some MVP votes. We're going to kind of take another look at that just in a second here. But in terms of what Bradley Beal is going to be doing, I think he's probably going to be someone who actually is going to take a step back this upcoming season. I think we're going to see a little bit less of him being a primary factor in why the Suns end up winning games. You have to remember, you got Kevin Durant out there. He's going to get touches as well. Now, having Tyus Jones there is really going to benefit Bradley Beal. He's going to do a lot less ball handling, which I think is more suited for his style of play. He's more of someone who can excel in certain ISO situations and as well as catching the ball and attacking off the dribble in broken floor situations after some ball movement, and also shooting catch and shoot open shots. I think those are his strengths, and having Tyus Jones on the court is more beneficial for his style of play than when it was Booker and him being the primary ball handlers and trying to make something happen individually between those two. So if we take a look at Bradley Beal's numbers last year, he averaged 18.2 points per game, about 4 rebounds per game, with 5 assists. Obviously, that's because he was one of the primary ball handlers. He shot well from the field, shooting over 50% from the field, 51% in fact, and actually really shooting well from 3-point range, shooting 43%. Now, again, he was hampered with some injuries over the course of last season, so the chemistry, we saw that in the playoffs, that there were some issues there. But I really do think highly of what Bradley Beal is capable of and what he can do when he's on the court. I just think that he's going to be someone that takes a step back. So I don't think his numbers are going to be up there with the likes of Devin Booker or with some of these other potential MVP candidates. We're talking like Luka Doncic, Anthony Edwards, Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, even Kevin Durant for that matter. I don't think that I can see Beal performing at an MVP level this upcoming season. And I think the odds makers, if you look at in sports betting sites, kind of reflect that. Also, if you take a look at FanDuel Sportsbook in terms of their MVP odds, right now they've got Kevin Durant as the most likely Suns player to win the MVP this season at plus 6,000. What that means is if you bet $100 right now on Kevin Durant to become the NBA's MVP this upcoming season, you would win $6,000 back. Devin Booker at plus 10,000, which means you bet $100, you could win $10,000 for Devin Booker. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I think that that is a low risk, high reward bet. Even if you put $10 on it, I think that that is something that you could, make some money on if Devin Booker has the kind of year that I'm thinking of. you know, don't if obviously bet responsibly, but I don't think that that is a far fetched thing to think that Devin Booker can become the MVP. In fact, the odds for Bradley Beal in terms of his MVP candidacy not listed right now. He's not available to be bet on FanDuel Sportsbook. That could obviously change if he gets off to a pretty hot start, and then odds for him will eventually climb up there. And I think because he'd have to like keep it up for a very lengthy period of time for him to even creep up to where Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are. But again, I'm not expecting that kind of a year from Bradley Beal. However, he does have that talent. He's a very talented player, and I think that's what KG was talking about when he referenced that Beal and Booker can be MVPs. They have three MVP talent level players on their team, and when you have that, you have an opportunity to do big things regardless. And I think that's what the Suns have been hoping for. That's what they've been building for, and that's why it is championship or bust. This is not a rebuilding team situation, and they believe that they're going to be able to compete with the other big boys in the Western Conference, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Minnesota Timberwolves, Dallas Mavericks, and the Denver Nuggets. But that's just what I think. That's just what KG thinks. We want to hear from you guys. Let us know what you guys think in the comment section below. Is KG crazy? Can Devin Booker and Bradley Beal be MVP candidates this upcoming season? Let us know in the comments, and also leave some of your thoughts on some topics that you would like us to discuss here on Suns Digest. But that's all the time I got for you guys this time. If you want to make sure you're keeping up to date with all the latest Suns news and updates, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Again, my name is CJ Pierre, and I will catch you guys next time. And go Phoenix Suns.